All right. Let's do this show. Welcome. It is Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of all things Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, Rings of Power, books, movies, games, and the occasional Miyazaki Minute. This week, we will not have any Miyazaki Minute because your host, Clifford Broadway, has the week off, just like I had a week off last week. I hope Cliff did well. I hope I hope the show went well. I hope there were no technical glitches last week. Um, you in the chat, let me know how last week went. I heard Cliff had a special guest, an actual employee of Middle Earth Enterprises. I don't know how he pulls in these guests. So here's the deal. Since Cliff has the day off, I want this show to be the call-in show. So let me see if I have a lower third with our phone number. Nope. Where's our phone number? Text. I'm going to put our phone number on screen. And today's show is going to be call-in show. So check this out. Torn Tuesday live call-in show. Our phone number is 530-643-7636. Hold on, let me make sure that's my real number. Google. What's Google Voice? It's a Google Voice number. And yeah, let's see here. 530-643-7636 is our phone number. So this is the call-in show. You can call me, ask me questions, ask me what I did last week. If you guys don't care where I was last week, that's fine too. Ask me anything you want about movies or games or Rings of Power or why I think certain ways. This is the weekly call-in show, and since Cliff isn't here, I want to talk only about Rings of Power. So, all right, my Google Voice is on. That really goes to my phone number. And if you're in our Discord, I've posted the link to the Zoom in our Discord. I keep telling you guys every week to join our Discord. So I'm serious about making this the biggest and best call-in show for Lord of the Rings fans. So let's go to our first caller. First caller is calling on the hotline. One moment, please. Let's bring him in. Hi, who's calling?
Taco Flint guy.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
And I was wondering if you got the text I sent you this afternoon about Treeling and the One Ring.
Oh no, I did see it. I didn't read it, but go ahead and give everybody the news.
Okay. This is for players of the One Ring and the Lord of the Rings role-play 5e conversion. And it's on Tree League Publishing's Facebook page, posted just today. New releases for the One Ring and the Lord of the Rings role-playing coming June 2nd. Pre-order now. Hand of the White Wizard, Trials of Saruman, and Hobbit Tales out for immediate PDF access. Hobbit Tales is actually the same information that was in the original The One Ring starter set, placed in a hardcover volume. Hand of the White Wizard and Trials of Saruman are both campaign about Saruman, where the players are taking missions from him before he turns evil. And Trials of Saruman is the 5e version of Hand of the White Wizard.
Awesome. I'm going to I found it on their Facebook page. I'm going to bring this up on screen. All right. Thanks for calling in and thanks for the update on the RPG updates. Have a good one. Bye. All right, that's our first phone call, and we have our first guest who has joined us, none other than our Discord regular, Jessica. Hello.
Hi, Justin. How's it going?
Very good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to talk about all things Rings of Power tonight.
Awesome. Well, yeah, if you go to freeleaguepublishing.com and you can see the One Ring update, Trials of Saruman is right there. Boy, that is beautiful artwork on the cover of that D&D 5th edition book. All right. It looks like we got someone else joining the show. Again, the fan call-in show while Cliff's away, the mice will play. Webcrawler is here. Hello, Webcrawler.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
Um, awesome that both of you are here. So again, I have no agenda. What do you guys want to talk about? What's on your mind? What's going on?
Do you want to get started, Jess?
No, I think you had a great list of topics, so why don't you start us off?
Well, Justin had posted an interesting comment in the Discord this morning, and I just wanted to talk about it with him, and that's how we invited us here. So here we are. You had said that in season 2, episode 7 of The Rings of Power, that one scene with the infamous Elrond and Galadriel kiss. What was it that you had said?
Well, I didn't say it. It was a very popular Twitter account called Hall of Lore. Uh, this is the first tweet I saw this morning when I woke up. I wiped the sleep from my eyes and I opened Twitter because I hate myself. And this is the tweet that popped up from Hall of Lore. I call him E51. It says, using a gesture of affection as a distraction to move a crucial item. What a clever little fellow. And he has a picture of both Halbrand doing this and Elrond doing this. But interestingly, this guy, who may or may not be an insider, does not say what clever little fellows. He doesn't use a plural in the statement. So the implication here, and other Twitter accounts did quote tweet this, implies that, does this guy mean that Halbrand and Elrond are both uh versions, different versions of Sauron? It is the kiss, is the Elrond kiss Sauron in disguise? So that's the question that I posed to Discord this morning. Is Elrond actually Sauron in disguise? And Sauron got to kiss Galadriel in episode 7 of season 2. So that was the prompt this morning. Webcrawler, take it away.
I mean, I don't even know where to begin with this. You've made so many implications off of one tweet. Let's start with the first obvious question. Why? Why would they do that? Why would Sauron do that? The second one would be, how did he even get himself into that situation? Pretending to be Elrond from the beginning of the battle charge all the way to a conversation with Adar to that moment with the kiss, and then going back. Like, there's reaching, and then there's like, this is like Elrond jumping off the cliff. That's how big of a reach this is, as far as I'm concerned. Jess, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say, how is he able to be in two places at once? You know, I think someone brought that up this morning, and it's kind of hard to argue with that. We already know he's in Eregion.
But
So,
he is Sauron, and the show could be playing with different time frames and timelines. So we like, is the my thought was, does Sauron have Can Sauron be in multiple places in multiple heads at the same time?
That is not one of the powers of the Maiar that we are told by Tolkien in any of his extended writings. So I would go with no. He does not have the power to be physically in multiple places at once. And Elrond has not opened his mind to him. So I don't think that he's able to possess him, or however you want to word it. So I'm going to go with no.
But here's the interesting thing. In before season 2 released, there were a lot of rumors that Sauron was going to kiss Galadriel in season 2, but under the disguise of someone else. And this was a rumor that was very controversial, caused a lot of conversation. I remember talking with Varking and Tea with Tolkien and several other people of just like, are we ready? Are we ready for a situation where Sauron gets his kiss, but under false pretenses? And the fan reaction was so averse to this. It was so gross. It's interesting that a kiss still happened in the show. It's equally as gross, little incestuous, and so I wonder if someone leaked the idea of Sauron taking over a body to kiss Galadriel, and that's actually what they filmed. But they saw the fan reaction, and in post-production, they're like, all right, we got to re-edit this whole thing because the fans are not going to be on board.
Yeah, I don't know about the timeline on being able to re-edit that after fan reaction. Also, I'd be interested to see the source of this rumor
Are
and
you
whether it was
sure?
just fan speculation.
Are you sure you didn't start this rumor, Justin?
That's
Are you
also a
sure you didn't
possibility.
start it and spread it and then
Look, I just report what I hear. I am not creative enough to come up with all
I
of these
think I think
leaks.
I think Sauron might have slithered into your mind at some point.
I think at some
And
point the showrunners told us that they wanted Sauron to slip into the viewer's mind. Princess Toy Nerd in the chat room says this concept gives me Jamie Cersei vibes, and I don't want to discount that because Jeff Bezos personally said, "Bring me the next Game of Thrones," and Rings of Power is that show. Jeff Bezos wants a water cooler show. He wants the next Game of Thrones. That's what he wanted out of Rings of Power. And that's what he still wants out of Rings of Power.
I think what he wanted was a high concept fantasy show with wide mainstream popularity and, critical or critic consensus that it's an amazing show and gets awards and those kind of things. I don't think he was specifically talking about bringing in, the actual themes from Game of Thrones into The Lord of the Rings. And this is an important point because there was a lot of concern going into season 1 and season 2 of people having these worries about, Amazon creating this kind of show. I recall there was, someone had mentioned that there was an intimacy coordinator on set, and that threw the fandom into a frenzy. And for me, it's like I worry that the frenzy kind of overshadows, you know, some of the very good things that this show does and some of the very interesting conversations that are to be had with this show. And so that is why I wanted to be like, okay, let's put, this rumor about this kiss scene being filmed else with someone else to the side. And let's sort of focus on what the showrunners are trying to do with this connection and not relationship, but this friendship between Elrond and Galadriel and how it's progressed from season 1 to season 2. Do you get what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And let me remind you that there is no actual biological relation between Galadriel and Elrond. They are related by marriage later in history, but it's not like they are twins or brother and sister like Cersei and Jaime. So I don't think that this is comparable in the same way.
And I would be remiss not to add that there is an early draft, and this is proven. It's in the like nature of Middle Earth, or one of those uh, home books, where initially Tolkien had considered having Galadriel and Elrond together but separated. It's an interesting concept that he had come upon early on. There's like one single sentence about it. And I do wonder if this was just like sort of a sly, cheeky reference to that.
Yeah,
They're
that's
known for their sly, cheeky references. They're very niche, references to tiny little details that Tolkien mentioned one time.
I see some folks jumping in on the Zoom. We're gonna bring you guys in a sec, but on I just want to be clear that uh I'm here to share what a lot of fandom is feeling and tell is saying on our message boards and Discord, and I'm just here to report what everybody's going on. I personally, I love this messiness. I love that Galadriel's single and dating and kissing whoever. I wanted this back in 2019 when I asked for Riverdale and Rivendell. And so I want to thank you, McPain, for giving me some of what I wanted. The show is fun. Um, so let's
One early Galadriel was messy. I mean, the Galadriel in the first age, she was messy. She was not the Lady of Light, the stoic, sort of ethereal, otherworldly lady that we see in The Lord of the Rings. So, I like what they're doing with the character. I think it makes her so much more nuanced than we've gotten in the past.
yeah,
So
Yeah,
it's awesome to see her evolution throughout the show. It
yeah,
already is.
you get to see her in season one sort of embody the more tropey Noldoran traits that we know of, arrogant, aggressive, but through her journey, you see her sort of start to self-reflect, and in a sort of meta way, it allows us to reflect on the failures of the Noldor and the elves in the first and second age, as she progresses and sees that Middle Earth is a bigger story than just her personal feelings.
yeah, and let's not forget she's called Man Maiden. That's literally the
Mhm.
translation of her name. So in my mind, she's GI Jane. That classic movie. Um, and also throughout Galadriel's marriage with to Celeborn, they spend a lot of time separated. I mean, they're just not together for eons,
And that's normal for elves. Like Tolkien says of
y-
other marriages as well. They just, they live for thousands of years. So spending a couple hundred years apart here and there, not as much of a big deal.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like a summer trip.
Yeah.
She's on her summer trip right now, right? To a couple weeks out in Europe, traveling through Spain, whatever. It is
She also
interesting
thinks
though.
she's
Go ahead.
unmarried. She also thinks she's a widow at this point. So, you know,
I was talking to someone
she's
else about
not.
this earlier today, which is that, you know, by excluding Celeborn from the first couple of seasons so far, the showrunners have actually made his imminent return more important than he as a character would have been if he had been in the show from the very beginning, right? He would have probably been like a Gilgalad, Círdan, Elrond level character who's like there, but the story is still focused on Galadriel, and he's kind of like supporting. But now, 2 seasons in, and we're waiting for this character to show up and interact with Galadriel,
well,
and
you
it's
are.
made him. I'm not the only one,
A lot of people are.
right? we're waiting not just for him to show up, to see how it affects Galadriel going forward. And so I don't know. Thank you, McPain, for making Celeborn somewhat more important than he ever was.
Well, to be determined, and we don't know. It's all rumors and leaks. Hey, I'm gonna bring in one of the other people here. Let's see what they have to say. Emily, come on in. Might have to unmute there. Hit the unmute. I wish I could do that on my end.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Oh, there you are. It is late for you, I believe.
Yeah, 1:22 a.m.
All right. Well, let's get you in and out. What's on your mind?
Oh, personally, when it comes to Rings of Power, I'm hoping for improvement, but the first two seasons just haven't quite done it for me yet. I mean, I think my favorite character have been Elrond and oh, the Dwarf King.
Durin.
He's
Yeah.
sure. But a lot of the other characters, he just kind of annoyed me, unfortunately. They just, yeah, I just think certain things were just over CG'd. Some things just don't seem real. And the stuff about the wizard, it's like, what the heck is going on? Because, well, it still doesn't seem like it's following what Tolkien originally wrote.
Well, he
So,
did. To
yeah.
be fair, he didn't write almost anything about the Second Age. The Second Age is a pretty blank slate. But I think most fans are will concur with you that a lot of the characters are underdeveloped because there just aren't enough episodes for the amount of characters that are in this show. So,
Agreed. It should have
um,
been minimum 10 episodes.
minimum 10
Yeah.
episodes. But with this many characters in it, it should be 15 to 20 episodes. I mean, this is a lot of characters and we all love these characters that we already knew, and we're just like, give us more. We know what Gil-galad is all about. We know what Elrond's all about. Give us more. We know what's there, but there's not enough time. So let me ask you this. Season 3 trailer potentially coming next week, Emily. What would get you hyped? What do you want to see in the trailer?
I don't know. Just I want it to actually grip me. So far, it's more like I just been watching it. I watched it each of the episodes of the season of just once, and it's not really got me to want to go and rewatch it. I want it to really grip me and make me want to, go back and rewatch over it. It's too basic. I want something. I want that feeling, and I've not gotten that yet.
Well, if the trailer is narrated and voiced over by the silky smooth baritones of Jamie Campbell Bower, is that enough for you?
It's not so much the voices, it's the story. It's what's happening in the story that gets me or makes me think,
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Well, we're gonna chat with some other folks that are dialing in. But thanks for calling in, Emily. From 1 in the
yeah.
morning.
But I agree with you on not enough episodes, but so many TV shows nowadays that aren't enough episodes. We need
Mhm.
more.
I agree. I agree. All right. Thanks, Emily. All right. Let's see here. We've got another
Can I
person. Yeah,
say a
go
little
ahead.
something while you're bringing someone in, just in response to Emily, who I think made some great points. I think, now that we're getting into season 3, the little bit that Tolkien did write about this age, and this time period, we're kind of getting more into what he actually did write down as we get into the War of the Elves and Sauron. So and I'll also say that this is the first season that they actually got to write after they had heard feedback and, responses to the first 2 seasons. So, yet to see what they do with that information and feedback that they've gotten from audiences on seasons 1 and 2, but that is just something to note. We'll see if they take any of that feedback and do anything with it, change anything.
Yeah. All right. We've got L, it looks like. Are you there?
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Nice to finally talk to you guys.
Yeah. What's
I think I know who this is.
I just wanted to thank Justin for constantly celebrating the real core of the show, which is, of course, Sauron and Galadriel.
Oh boy, here we go.
whoa. I don't
Don't
like
say
that
the H
attitude,
word though.
Webb. Why well, thank you for that. We'd love to see Haladriel supporters worldwide. What about that dynamic, Sauron and Galadriel, spoke to you? Why did it grab you?
This is just coming from my personal stance, but I believe, to me anyway, this felt like the most intriguing, most complex, most well realized dynamic and relationship in the entire show. You've got the ally element, you've got the hatred, the vengeance, the grudging sort of respect, you've got all sorts of dimensions and facets. And to me, it transcends a lot of the way the writing is approached in other relationships, which are still good. There are still good characters, still good dynamics. But I think Galadriel is easily the most fascinating out of all of them. So, and I really do think it would be in their best interest to really sort of not drop that, like a lot of people seem to be hoping for.
Yeah, and a last one I think in the Discord earlier was like every mention of Haladriel is going to be put on a list and submitted to Cliff later. But I want to just remind everybody that Tolkien himself said that Galadriel was Sauron's foe. Like
Hmm.
Tolkien envisioned the great evil, the Lord of the Rings, the guy that the entire franchise is named after. His foe is Galadriel, and there's a lot of implications to that because the only hint we get from that is from Tolkien's pen, where that she says, "I would be a queen if I took his ring." So
Hmm.
that dynamic feels most true to Tolkien than anything else in the show. Just taking Tolkien from the written page, you know.
If I could lightly push back just on that one comment with regards to the chief adversary line, that was specifically in reference to uh, the one version of the story where Galadriel sort of rules in Eregion and Anatar appears, and Anatar is planning to try to subdue the elves. And in that moment, he perceived that she would be his biggest obstacle there. I don't think it covers the entire span and range of the second and third age included. But, that could just be a personal opinion thing.
I'll give you your personal opinion. So
I,
what do you want to see if we get a trailer next week? What would get you hyped for season 3? What do you want to see in the trailer?
is this to me or
Yes.
yeah? I think, and I've been saying this probably a bit too much on the Discord, is that they should start leaning into the sort of Asan way, the sort of mental conversations between Sauron and Galadriel, like just hints. Um, and they could, if they wanted to, take inspiration from I mean, I know people are going to roll their eyes at this, but the sort of the Reylo Star Wars sort of exchanges, because they have a sort of forced communication in those films. They could, if they wanted to, maybe take inspiration from there. That would be interesting, and maybe, of course, hints about Celeborn would be very interesting. And to be honest, oh, and of course, a little bit about Elrond. Um, and yeah, that's basically all I'd really be looking for. I don't think I'd expect to have a huge amount of substance at this point in the trailer.
Do you think the trailer should really introduce Jamie Campbell Bower in a big way? Should marketing lean in with his participation in the show now? Or should they just kind of treat him equal screen time as everybody else?
Uh, I actually haven't seen Stranger Things, but as far as I've been, as far as I'm aware, he was a very popular character in that, and that was obviously a hugely popular show. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do lean on that. I'm not sure if they would go all in terms of showing him right now. Maybe they'll just tease him. But I do think it would be wise to exploit his popularity and his fame, and yeah, especially coming off the back of that show.
Yeah, I think so too. I had a weird dream the other night that the Amazon upfronts, which are this Monday, May 11th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. Um, I had a dream that they were on stage, they were hyping up Jamie Campbell Bower, they were introducing him. He walks out on stage in his, high couture, well-dressed outfit, and he announces that he's Celeborn, and 3 people clap in the audience.
I mean, there is something to be said about what the mainstream, more casual fan thinks about Celeborn, or if they think about him at all. Maybe I sometimes wonder if maybe we are overhyping Celeborn because we're in this bubble of fandom. And I'm personally interested in seeing him. I think he'll be a great addition to the show. I do wonder, and I'm really not sure how much he is anticipated outside of that sort of quite small bubble that we're in. That I can't say because I really don't know. It'd be interesting to find out.
And I'd be remiss not to add that we don't know for sure who Jamie Campbell Bower is playing
That's correct.
as
Yeah,
of yet.
that's true.
It
Okay,
could be Glorfindel.
he could be Elf number 4 for all we know.
He could be Finrod. He could be Sauron's new face. We don't know.
We don't know. But with regards to the season 3 trailer, personally, I would like to see the focus of the story shift a little bit more towards Numenor, just because we know that there's a really big event in the Second Age coming up that they're going to have to depict. And they need to start getting the ball rolling on that. Especially with, we know season 2 ended with Sauron having the 9 rings. So he's got 9 rings of men that he needs to give out. We know Kemen is in Pelargir trying to get timber for this armada of Pharazons that is supposed to arrive at some point in Middle Earth. We ended with a lot of political strife in Numenor and Elendil leaving the capital. Another mention of Anarion, who many people are excited to see in the Numenor storyline. And so
That's right.
I'm hoping there is, in the trailer at least, or a teaser, a bit more focus on, the world of men in Middle Earth.
The interesting thing, speaking of Numenor, let me bring this up on screen. Happy birthday to Tristan Gravel. That's right. Yesterday was his birthday. So huge birthday. I just found out he's 1 year younger than me. And he's in a big $1 billion TV show, and I'm not. I'm here talking about that TV show. So congrats, happy birthday to Tristan Gravel, um, who's wearing blue here in season 2, I think. But here in a leaked pic from shooting season 3, you can see that his guard, he's wearing a gold and black cape here, and the King's Guard is clad in red. So at some point, he traded up the blues to the reds, and also you see in this leaked pic that Farazan, who's right there in the middle, is standing alongside Gil-galad. We think this is a scene at the end of the season where potentially Sauron is being handed off as a prisoner to Farazan. So it's a
I'll posit an alternate view, which is
sure.
this might be early on in the season when potentially Gil-galad and Elrond go towards Numenor. What do you think about that possibility?
So this would mean they are in Numenor because they're meeting Farazan. So is this Farazan greeting the elves, the Elven Kings?
Possibly, yes. Greeting the Elven Kings, receiving them, receiving Gil-galad and Elendil, and taking them to court. I mean, he seems regally dressed, but it doesn't seem like battle gear. It's not like armor.
Mm-hmm.
It's very formal, and so I don't know if it would be near the end of the season. That's just my theory, though.
Interesting. Your
Well,
thoughts, Jessica?
yeah, if they go in line with the text, I wouldn't expect to see a battle between Farazan and Sauron at this point. I would expect Farazan to be, have all his army and all his banners and all his finery, and for Sauron to come up and surrender to him without battle at this point, as it happens in the text before he goes back to Numenor. So this is kind of what I would expect. I don't know if you got another picture of Farazan's outfit here, Justin, because it's
I'm
so
looking for
good.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. He's got like little pieces of armor on, but this is our Farazan the Golden here. Just hearing that Sauron has declared himself a king of men, and he's like, no, that's me, and I'm gonna go take this guy down. So that's what he does. And yeah, I am thinking that this is the shores of, yeah, there it is. Man, that's,
I
I
mean,
think,
that is
yeah,
it.
this is the work of our new I think lead costume designer, I think Libby Dempsey, if I'm getting her name
Mhm.
correct. She's worked on the past 2 seasons and now has taken the lead role, and I think recently worked on A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. There's some great costuming in that show as well. So I think this is just gorgeous. I love this costume. We'll have to get to like the details in Elrond's costume later in a little bit. I definitely want to look at those. But yeah, this I think is I think there's a leak that Gil-galad and Elrond go to Numenor to get the help of the Numenorians, and so I think this is when they're all coming back to Middle Earth.
And if you
Yeah,
look
this
at
is the shores.
Gil-galad in the picture right behind Farazan. He's wearing the same outfit he's wearing at the end of the season 2 during the fall of Region, just with a cape.
And
So
sideburns.
yeah, and sideburns. So there's not a significant costume change for Gil-galad,
Hmm.
which makes me think that this is not too far off from where we ended up at the end of season 2.
Although we do know there's going to be a time jump.
Oh yeah, that's true, but we don't know when that time jump is. It could be at the beginning, could be
Yeah, it could be
after the first
mid-season.
episode,
Didn't
could
didn't
be mid-season.
Seven Kingdoms no, it didn't one of the Game of Thrones shows do it like
House
a
of the Dragon.
mid-season? House of the Dragon
Yeah,
did.
season 1.
Um,
That would be
speak
interesting. I haven't considered that.
Speaking of Numenor, I wanted to bring this up because the Odyssey trailer dropped today. Huge big budget movie from Christopher Nolan. Don't want to play the whole trailer, but I wanted to play this scene and then I'll talk about it in a sec. Of course, I don't want to really get copyrighted with the sound, but here's a scene of Matt Damon's armies at war with some dudes, some big dudes. These aren't the giants. This isn't the Cyclops, right? Those are just
They're related. This is related.
they're just taller than normal men, right? And you can see in one of the shots that it is men in armor. You can see that it's a man's face in one of these shots. I wanted to bring this up because I saw some conversation on Blue Sky that this is what Numenorians should look like next to the race of men in Lord of the Rings. Numenorians were taller, stronger, and live longer than men. So I wanted to put it to you guys. Is that accurate, first off? And do you want to see Numenorians be bigger than the race of men?
Well, these are the Lystragonians, which are descended from Poseidon. So these have godlike, they are a race of giants, related to the Cyclops. So a little bit different. And I think I'm not wanting to see Numenor at this point, looking like this. I think, with the compressed timeline, we're looking at a Numenor that's very close to its fall. The the men have diverged from, somewhat from their ancestry, and we're looking at them on the decline. So I think this is a little bit too extreme for what we're gonna see with between the Numenorians and then what they call low men. I think there's also not, yes, they were tall. I don't think that it's gonna be like it was ever said that they were like 2 feet taller than low men. Um,
I'm also one of the few people on this planet right now who's not impressed by the Odyssey trailer. So for me, this scene kind of looks ridiculous, and I'm personally glad the Numenorians don't look this gargantuan and don't look like space marines, basically in medieval setting.
You guys might not remember this, but back in the 2000s, before Lord of the Rings was coming out, there was a lot of internet chatter and complaints about Viggo Mortensen being cast as the heir of Numenor, right? And he was not the right complexion. He was too short, and there were a lot of fans that were making a big stink that Aragorn was too feminized in the movies compared to the books. He wasn't a reluctant king in the books. But I remember a lot of debates on the message boards on our site and Ain't It Cool News, that, yeah, Aragorn just wasn't tall enough. Like the Numenorians are supposed to be taller. I thought that Rings of Power and the showrunners might have an opportunity to correct some of the mistakes or fan complaints in that regard. But you guys are kind of saying that that's not really important. Numenorians don't need to be taller.
I
I
mean,
mean,
Elendil is pretty tall. I don't
I
know
was
how
gonna
tall that
say,
actor is, but he is tall. Like
Elendil looks huge compared to like it's like there's those shots and scenes of him standing next to Aryan or Galadriel, and he lives up to Elendil the Tall, the
Mhm.
name. So I think they did a good job casting wise, for at least the main characters. I don't know if every Numenorian needs to look that tall. I think it's also kind of hard to try to find that, and yeah, it doesn't take me out of it to see them be normal sized.
I
It
would
takes me out
rather,
of
yeah, I would
yeah.
rather have the actor fit the role than have them be a certain height or need to be a certain height. That definitely doesn't take me out of it.
Okay. We're getting text messages on the hotline again, folks. The phone number
Oh
is at the
boy.
bottom of the screen. You can call. And or if you can find our Discord, I've posted the Zoom link in one of our many, many, many rooms. So it's up to you guys to find it. So the question from the hotline right here is Justin, what do you and Webb and Jessica and everybody think about the rumors that there won't be any Harfoots in season 3? I have my opinions, but I'll let you guys go first.
Well, I guess Jess and I did write an article for Fellowship of Fans that kind of covered this, so I think it feels timely. Um, Personally, I liked the Harfoots. I thought in season one they were fantastic. I think in season two, it did feel like they didn't really have an idea of what to do with them early on, and so I'm kind of I have mixed feelings, but I'm okay with them, not being in at least this upcoming season potentially. If we meet them again down the road, I'd be happy, but I think right now the story does need to shift focus into a more Numenor and Elven centric mode.
Do you agree, Jess?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I loved the Harfoots in seasons 1 and 2. I think it was very meaningful to Heartless Harfoots. That's the most ridiculous headline. I'll get back to that later. I think it was really powerful to connect them to Gandalf's journey and to show this sort of history of why he's so fond of them and why he has this long-standing relationship with them and why they are the ones who eventually are able to bring about Sauron's demise. I think that this is a natural time for them to depart from the main storyline. So if we don't see them in season 3 or season 4, I think that's okay. If they kind of go in a little bit, then sure. But I think if we were to leave them and then check back in with them at the end of the show, like in season 5, they're journeying and they, make it to the outskirts of the Shire, I would be fine with that. I would I would consider that time well spent. But for now, I think it's okay for them not to be in this upcoming season.
Yeah, and they did their job. They introduced Gandalf to us, right?
Mhm.
Started off as a stranger, didn't know who he was. He kind of got a sense of what it means to be good, learning
Mhm.
from the Harfoots, and now he's on his way with Tom Bombadil. So
To fight
that's
the
the
dark
easiest.
wizard Palando.
and
Yeah,
and 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 D, what's your opinion on Harfoots?
Uh, I think in season one they had a great sort of a charm, a kind of grounded, naturalistic sort of quality that sort of kept things a bit closer to home for the audience. In season two, I kind of agree that it felt like they didn't quite know what to do with them, and either if they did, then it didn't seem to be working particularly well. I like the actors, I just don't know if they are I'm not sure if the showrunners have a great idea of how to include them in the narrative at this point. Maybe, I mean, I don't know about the rumor that, they might have a decreased presence or not. If that's the case, then it's a shame because, they are good actors. But it will probably help the story if, to be a bit more focused.
Yeah, I agree. Green Lanterns podcast has joined the chat. The link to the Zoom is in our Discord. If you can find your way there, Green Lanterns podcast. We'd love to talk about dwarves because we have not talked about dwarves because nobody ever wants to talk about dwarves except one man.
Barking. That's right.
I did like a whole video speculating on dwarves and what they're going to be up to this season. I'm thrilled to talk about the dwarves, especially if
Well, let me wrap up on
Orphans.
the Harfoot. So there's a couple of things going on with the Harfoots, and I'm going to get to that article in a sec because I didn't expect to click on that article. I just clicked on the first photo that looked high res. There is disagreements on the different leak groups on whether the Harfoots are or are not going to be in season 3. There have been many reports from folks that the Harfoots are not in season 3. There have been other reports that they have a very diminished, like basically a cameo. But our reporting at the One Ring is Green Dragon at the One Ring was on the Comic-Con cruise with both of those actresses. So in person, talking to them face to face, they were like they kept wanting to talk about season 3 of Rings of Power and can't wait for everybody to see the new season. And of course, Amazon didn't want them to reveal anything. So like, we can't talk about anything. But they said they've had a great time filming for season 3. So there has been no hints or implications from the actual actors talking to us and other fans in person on the Comic-Con cruise that implies that they have any less of a role than they ever had. So what's going to prove true? Wait to find out when the show comes out, because we don't even have a release date when that show comes out yet. Hopefully that gets fixed on Monday. David Roberts has looks like he's joined the chat. Let me oh, did he jump out? Nope, I didn't get him in time. Oh, there he is. David Roberts is in the Zoom. If you click unmute, we'd love to hear your thoughts on Rings of Power.
Oh, just getting
There he is.
the other live channel muted. Hello.
Howdy. Welcome
Sort
to the show.
Good. Hello. I
Hi,
would say
David.
long-time listener. Hello.
Long time,
Uh,
first time.
Well, except I haven't listened much, but I was in the Torn forums in 2001, looking forward to
Oh,
the release of
long
Fresh
time,
Start.
first time.
Yes. That was my daily go-to. So
Very
yeah.
good.
Yes. So you got a stacked crew here of Fellowship of fans. It's kind of funny.
We're all one
Yes.
fandom, right?
Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
So
So
what's on your mind? What do you want to talk about with Rings of Power?
Too many thoughts, but I think one thing which I've really enjoyed just is, well, basically Rings of Power, I think, gave me the excuse to go and read History Middle-earth when it was like, oh, it's going to come out. So it's like, all right, better start reading. 12 books later, that's done. And you can really appreciate, you're deep in some book and you're like, hang on a minute. That's something the showrunners just referenced. They just, it's a weird type of storytelling where they don't necessarily have the rights to this or that book, but they're like, you know what, we're just pulling out something that's like not copyrightable, and we're going to like throw that in there and throw that in there, because you've got to get your ideas from somewhere. Like you're writing a show where the source text is, what, like half a dozen pages of timeline or something. So, you know, yeah. I mean, the idea that the showrunners don't know the source is, laughable. But they're so constrained, like by, what they can and can't do. So I think the walking the tightrope of, the Tolkien estate going, yes, you can do this, no, you can't do that. That little wink and a nod is fine, but please, like, stick to the main source text. That's an exercise which I don't think many people have thought through. So I for whatever flaws or weaknesses the production has had, that's something I don't think you can fault them in. They're really trying to make the most out of a highly constrained situation, and tell a good story. You could just make do the Hobbit, where you have got to tell all the story in great detail, and you do tell the story in great detail, and then you're like, but for me personally, it leaves me cold. But
Maybe too much detail.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
true.
like you've
Like
got to
for me, I
balance.
hadn't read the Silmarillion since I was 15. Right, that's when I fell in love with Numenor, reading the Akababeth chapters. And then when this show came out, I went back and reread that. I bought The Fall of Numenor. I, got like one of the home books and started perusing through that, teaching myself, reteaching myself the lore that I had either forgotten. And so I think, if all this show has accomplished is made us want to explore Tolkien's world through his texts even more, then I think it's still a great success, right? To be able to have these debates over, which part of the lore did they choose, which story, which version of this character are they trying to portray? Is Gilgalad, Fingon's or Fingolfin's son, or Ordoreth's son? These debates that we can have because it's reinvigorated sort of this interest in that larger canvas.
Let me
It's
ask you
almost
this,
like,
David. Do you think you're getting more out of the show because you read the History of Middle Earth series?
that's hard. So I can only compare it to someone else. So someone in my family who is a writer, I could convince her to read the Silmarillion, and it was like, okay, has not read any of the extended stuff that I've talked about it, but she watches the show and she can go, she can evaluate the strengths and weaknesses, but also go, look, what they're doing from a writing perspective is really interesting, right? And so I can go, but you can see they're pulling this, and I can drop whatever lore snippets or whatever. Like, I think someone can definitely, if they're willing to sort of sit down and think about what is it actually trying to say, take off the assumptions of, a year of scaremongering pre-release, and just going to go, well, what is it trying to do? And I think it's interesting. If what would I appreciate it more or less? I can tell you, probably 25 years ago, 2001 me, probably wouldn't have appreciated it as much, because I was young. I was probably one of those people who are going, boo, they're casting an American as Frodo, sacrilege. Like, I'm sure you remember, like, there was
Oh
some
yeah,
weird
oh
debate.
yeah. There were
Like,
headlines about the accents, not just from the Americans, but the other two, Billy and
the
Dom. Like,
Pippin,
how are these guys
yeah,
ever going to sound the same?
yeah, how are they gonna sound? Yeah. So it's I think also it's like like a weird reverse literary hate watching, where you're like, oh, this show, not hate watching, it's like hate reading. It's like, I'm going to prove the show wrong, so I'm going to go read more Tolkien to find out why. And it's like, yes, the estate is going, Keep buying books. Read more Tolkien. Thank you. It's not a terrible thing. Even if you hate the show and like go, I'm gonna see what the problems are and read the Silmarillion. Like, well, that's a win. That's
Yeah, I think it's kind of like an Ouroboros. Like if you are familiar with Tolkien's texts, I think that you can pick up on some things. For myself, I'm very familiar with all of Tolkien's works, and I watch the show and I see things, and it inspires me to go back to his works, and look at them deeper and look at the show and see what they're doing and why they're doing and making certain choices. Um, and everyone might not always like those choices or agree with those choices, but I myself usually find them interesting. Like, oh, why did they choose to do this thing? Or we'll look at this, very niche reference that they've thrown in the background and not even made a part of the story. I think that Rings of Power is a show that rewards repeat viewings. The more you watch it, the more little details that you can pick out. And many of those are, from not the trilogy. They're from the history of Middle Earth. And I think even more exciting to hear about some of the specific rights to specific parts of the history of Middle Earth that we have heard that they've gotten the rights to for upcoming seasons. Unfinished tales, little parts of that, little parts of peoples of Middle Earth. David, I know you're a fan, so I think it'll be interesting. We know specifically when it comes to the wizards. However, there are some other interesting tidbits from those same sections that they may have also gotten the rights to. So it will be interesting to see what they're able to do with that in the upcoming seasons.
Totally. And here's one of those articles I was speaking about in a real newspaper with real ink put to real paper. Hobbits finally speak out, but what about the accents? So this wasn't just like internet debates. It was spilling over into the physical meat world. This was I forget what newspaper this was. I believe this was a British newspaper. Someone scanned and sent in, and how are they going to make the two Americans sound like Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd, who are from two different areas? So, yeah, people. I always hear people say that fandom debates are more intense than they've ever been. No, we were there. We fans complained about everything 20 years ago.
I was a little too young
This
to be
is
on the forums, but I hear they were lawless places.
Fandom never changes.
no. This is the Evening Post from November 1999.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Right? 1999.
Yeah.
I had only just read The Hobbit in 1999, and I was like, oh wow, this is such a fun story. I had no idea any of this
Well, so
existed.
this brings up a question, a follow-up question for David and for everybody here. Do you think the showrunners are making a show for well-read fans? Do you think like this show is better and because people have, if you've read more of it, more of the Second Age, more of history of Middle Earth, just more?
I think they're
I
trying to straddle between, trying to entice or appeal to a large general audience that may have either heard of the movies or watched the movies, but they're also trying to weave in, these elements from the text and these themes that so many fans have discussed over the years in a way that appeals to those who have read or will appeal to those who, after watching the show, will go back and read and add more depth to the overall conversation.
no, I agree. I also, I mean, you know, I think I ascribe to them more wisdom than to be like, you know what, we're going to make a show just for people who have read like the history of Middle Earth. That would just be a stupid economic decision. Um, uh, and it's maybe just more their own like intense fandom and geekiness leaking through. They're like, oh, this is so cool. Like what I've heard people say when they talk to the showrunners, like they just can't help but kind of effuse like excitement about the broader lore, So I can imagine it's something that like I just want to put these things in just for, you know, Easter
Yeah,
eggs or like I say,
I
you need
think that's
material.
what happened
So
with the Barrow Whites, which is that they had an opportunity to go through this region of Middle Earth, and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna be in this area where the Barrow Whites part took place. Is there some way we could incorporate that? Because that would be
mm,
so awesome, right?"
mm,
Same thing they did with Tom Bombadil.
mm,
They are. I do think they like the lore. I do think they like the story. Do we have disagreements with their interpretations of it? Of course, right? Every fan has their own view of what Middle Earth is like, and that's what makes it so special. But being able to discuss it and share it with each other, that's part of the fun.
mm.
Well,
I have a
this is a
slightly
go ahead.
yeah. No, I have a slightly heretical view, um, which is so probably from like a media theory point of view rather than Tolkien fandom, but um, like it's like when the Lord of the Rings films came out, people thought in the like 90s, like these things are unfilmable. Like we people who were around and have looked into the history know like the trouble the studios gave Peter Jackson and crew because like how are you going to do it and all up and down um and lightning struck and we just got these amazing movies and then it kind of with some other things at the time launched kind of a genre um and the same thing happened with Lord of the Rings the book, right? The you know Tolkien's publisher was like, look, if he said to his son, he's like, if you think this is a work of genius, I'm willing to gamble £1,000 in the mid 50s on this. Like, but like, I don't know, like, if this is even going to work. And it worked. And it was like, literary people were like, what even is this book? Um, and if I'm being, like opening my mind to the universe, like, how do I think about Rings of Power, the TV show? It's like it's almost like we're trying to put mythology on TV in a mythological mode and not in a this is a fantasy TV show in the style of Game of Thrones and Witcher and all what's there. Like imagine it's like is it possible to invent a new genre of TV? I don't fully claim they're doing it, but when you read the Silmarillion, it does not read like The Lord of the Rings. Like it's a wholly different genre of book.
Mhm.
Which is a kind of
It's also written by a different man, Christopher Tolkien.
well,
Yeah.
one chapter, I would say it's just a lot of
Published
him.
7 years after Tolkien's death.
Yeah, there's a book called Reconstructing Arda where Douglas Kane went through and was like, I'm going to source everything that's in the published Silmarillion from the history of Middle Earth, Unfinished Tales everywhere, references, and then whenever there's something that's new, I'll like note it, and you know, and it's very small percentages, Christopher. But you're going to say
Interesting.
something
And
about
it's
the
right here on, let me bring this up on screen. Good call. Art of Reconstructed, creation of the published Silmarillion by Douglas Charles Kane. The
Mm,
paperback is $60.
yeah. So I will say that apparently he's a lawyer, and maybe his like editors kind of leaned on him a bit to make it feel a little bit more controversial because he
Yeah, they got to
kind of has
sell
some
books.
statements that
Yeah.
yeah, like he has some statements that he like things like, oh, Christopher Tolkien was systematically reducing the role of women, and you're like, oh, that's a claim.
Ugh.
But when you go and think about, like, Christopher Tolkien set himself a brief at the start. Okay, this is what I'm going to do to select texts, and unfortunately, Tolkien's writing that more expanded the female characters happened later in life in less complete writings. Like his early books, The Hobbit has no female characters really.
Mm-hmm.
And post Lord of the Rings, he's expanding female elves, giving them more things. He gender swapped a character from a man to a lady. He's more speaking lines. He did all this stuff, but it's all in fragmentary drafts. So anyway, that's my caveat, that he has some spicy takes that people don't agree with, but the actual scholarship is good. Like, you want to say where did Christopher Tolkien get this part from this chapter from, and he points to it. He's like, this is the draft. So
Well, I'm gonna put this book on my list for sure, because I do love making of documentaries and how things come. Speaking of writing, I guess we should talk about the latest reveals. These are not leaks. This is official. This is as official as it gets, folks, from the WGA Writers Guild of America website, I believe. These are the credited writers for every episode of season 3. You can see right there. Basically, J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay took turns with Justin Doble, doing every other episode. This is
basically one big mega person just writing the whole season, right?
Yeah, we came up. We shortened J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay to McPayne. And now with Justin Doble and one of their co-workers at Bad Robot, we further have consolidated it. And I believe Tea with Tolkien coined the term McDoble.
You said it first.
Did you say it first? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right. So credit to Jessica here. McDoble.
Mine was slightly different. I will give her that. All right, I'm gonna see what I said and what she said.
So this is interesting. This is the first time that J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay have written nearly every episode of the season. It's interesting that no other writers are credited. We fans, of course, have been talking about who these new writers are that they brought in for season 3, and the shows that they'd worked on, EastEnders and other shows that I think Bridgerton was one or something like that, maybe not. But at the end of the day, the person that writes the episode is the one that gets the credit, and everybody else in the writer's room just makes a paycheck. They don't get credit.
I think that's not entirely accurate. I'm not a writer. I'm not involved with the WGA, so I don't know the details of, whatever the agreement was that was created after the 2023 strikes. But from my reading and understanding of it is that, there are other writers that were involved in the process. It's just a bit earlier on when the writer's room happens. And they provide story ideas, story beats, scenes, and then it's just put together, and there's a certain minimum number that is credited as production is ongoing for those kind of changes and edits that happen often during production. And so I think that's sort of what you're seeing here. Patrick McKay, J.D. Payne, Doble, they were probably on set while all this was being filmed. And so they have creditor to their names for these episodes, but there are other writers that were involved. We know, for example, Jonathan Wilson? Yeah, Jonathan Wilson, one of the writers of The Crown. He is listed as a executive or co-producer. He was involved early on in the writer's room. It was reported during season 2 in a Hollywood Reporter article. Ben Tago, he's the one that I believe worked on EastEnders. He's also mentioned as a executive producer or co-producer in that same consulting producer. And then that same article mentioned Ava Wong Davies, Constance Chang, and Griff Jones, Sarah Anson. So there's a pretty big, sizable writer's room that did work on it.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It wasn't just these three dudes. It was a whole team of writers. But the interesting thing is that in previous seasons, you got Jennifer Hutchinson got a whole episode credit. Helen Chang got a whole episode credit. Various other writers in the writers' room got whole episodes
Mhm.
credited. This feels, because McPain and Doble have all the credits to every episode. This feels that this season is going to be the most focused and the most consistent and the most idealistic. This is peak McPain. This is their season to show what they've got. Like, this isn't
I,
them.
I could agree with that. I could
Yeah.
agree with that in the sense that I think now they have a little bit more focus and direction to be able to really craft out their vision of the show. But I don't think I would discount, the influence or effect a writer like Ava Long Davies, who worked on Industry season 3 and 4,
Mhm.
Oh
pretty
man,
critically acclaimed
crazy
shows.
show. Yeah,
The effect she
fantastic
can
show.
have on this show. So I look forward to figuring out what more of their contributions are. I recall there was a tweet thread Helen Chang did during season 2 where she talked about the writing process and that everyone writes on every episode. It's not like you get sectioned off. Everyone writes
Mhm.
together. They come up with the major story beats. They just, there's a different mechanism via which it's credited to different people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So,
mostly about ownership of the story of each
yeah.
episode.
Well, and I still can't
But
get a satisfactory answer on this, but these new writers who are in the writers' room, there's a couple staff writers, but the ones that we've been mentioning, Ben To-Go, Ava Wong Davies, Constance Chang, Jonathan Wilson, they're all getting executive producer and consulting producer credits, which I don't know how that stacks up against a writing credit in Hollywood, like which one has more weight,
That
which one
yeah,
helps
that
with.
Amazon has done that with every single writer on the show. They gave executive producer credits to everybody. It's a way of, in the streaming world, it's a way of giving everybody a pay bump because you get a separate credits. With that extra credit, you get paid as an executive producer.
Sounds good to me.
So it doesn't mean, right.
So,
If you go to IMDb, there's like 28 executive producers. It doesn't mean that 28 people are overseeing every decision.
Right.
Like but this list of writers owning these episodes means this is the purest distillation of McPain's vision. And
Yeah.
this season is gonna be it for really showing the show that McPain has always wanted to make. There was a question in the chat: who is Justin Doble? First off, Justin was announced in the first writers' room video back in 2017. That long ago, almost 10 years ago. Justin Doble worked with McPain at J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot, where he worked on Cloverfield and Fringe. And what else? What else did he do? Almost Human. I mean, Fringe was a great show. Almost Human. Into the Badlands, great show. Emerald City. Stranger Things. He was involved in the first 2 seasons, I believe. Maybe just the first season.
First season was great.
And it was great. Stranger Things, I think, launched the genre category of streaming shows. Like, it was that good. And then of course, when you're a staff writer at a place like Bad Robot, you just do uncredited work on screenplays. We've heard that McPain may have had some influence on the Rise of Skywalker script. Justin Doble might have been called in and said, "Hey, can you punch up a scene with Raylo?" We don't know. But he has been involved with Rings of Power since the beginning. He was McPain's first hire. into the writer's room, and he is basically with season 3 is this being established as the third hand. The best comparison I can probably give is Benioff and Weiss did Game of Thrones, and then when season 3 came about for Game of Thrones, they brought in this guy Brian Cogman to start
Mhm.
writing episodes,
Yeah.
and he was quickly considered the third hand of the Benioff and Weiss. And then from then on, it was like Benioff and Weiss and Cogman. That is kind of the relationship Doble has now. It is time for him to step into the spotlight, and I hope that he becomes available on the marketing tour. I think fans would love to talk with Doble and just talk about writing and creating in this world.
What about comparison to Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyens?
Yeah,
Philippa
it'd be
Yeah.
just like Philippa, right? Fran Walsh, Peter Jackson, a husband and wife couple, and then Philippa was like the lore expert that they used to bounce things off. But over the years, Philippa became more integral into the writing room until at some point they just trusted Philippa to completely rewrite whole things, uh, when they when they edited out Arwen from the Helm's Deep storyline, that was Philippa figuring out what to write and rewrite and what to reshoot to make the story make sense. And now Philippa is the lead writer on all the new Lord of the Rings stuff. War of the Rohirrim, Hunt for Gollum, like she's running the writer's room down there. So that's a good comparison.
Can I ask you a question, Justin?
Yeah.
So I remember hearing you talk some years back about Amazon insufficiently staffing the writer's room for earlier Rings of Power seasons, skimping out, and obviously we've had the writer's strike and so on. How do you feel the stocking, if you like, of the writer's room is based on the names we've heard just talking now? Like, do you feel it's stronger? Like, there's more support network of junior writers, staff writers,
There were
do you feel like it's kind of
I don't know. I don't know how to
Mm.
feel yet, and I want to hold my whole opinion until I see the product of the show. But on its surface, from what we see, from what's been reported, from the names that you cited earlier, Jessica, and now from this list of the actual screenwriter list credited at the WGA, one of the goals of the writer's strike was to give more writers more money and more opportunity. And the showrunners are the showrunners. They're credited as the showrunner. They're credited as created by. Sometimes the showrunners even direct some episodes on some TV shows. Doesn't look like McPain really direct, but one of the main focuses was writers get more work based on past credits, right? And it became tough, especially for the writers on Rings of Power season 1 and 2, where Amazon insisted on secrecy for so long that people like Helen and Jennifer and the rest of the writers couldn't get any new work because they couldn't tell future employers what they worked on. And for years, I mean, we're talking 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. I mean, try paying a mortgage. So I'm not a fan of what I see here in this list. This goes the opposite direction. This is not giving more writers more opportunities. This is the showrunners taking more credit for everybody's work.
Does that only apply to the things that they're accredited as working as writers for? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, I could be. They can announce, and they did when they announced the writers' room, their producing credits. They give like all these people producing credits. We knew that before maybe they even announced when this season was coming out. So they can at least, have that on their CV, going out to get another job or whatever. But it seems like this WGA, like specifically how the credits are broken down for the writing, we just found this out like last month. That had to wait many months longer than it did for them to like credit them for producing. So, maybe this is a way that they can get credit on their resume while still keeping the secrecy, because this who's writing each episode, apparently that's, more secret than who's consulting producer or executive
Yeah.
producer for this next season. So, that could be a way that they're navigating the new WGA, navigating Amazon's privacy concerns with who's directing what or who's writing what. So I could see that happening because all of besides the 2 staff writers, they've all got producing credits that we've known since, I don't remember when this Hollywood Reporter article came out.
Totally. And I'd say another way to put it, David, is for a good comparison, Andor season 2. Andor season 2 was created under the new Writers Guild contract. Tony Gilroy, the showrunner, is not credited as the writer of those episodes. Beau Willimon wrote 2 or 3 episodes. Tony's brother, I forget the other Gilroy, wrote 3 episodes. That is an example of a prestige tentpole show doing right by the intention of the new WGA contract, which is it's Tony Gilroy's show. Everybody knows it's Tony Gilroy's. Everybody knows he leads the writers' room. Yeah, there's hundreds of interviews and with Tony Gilroy and the other writers on Andor talking about how he really led everything. He led the story, he led the beats, he told the writers what to write. But when it came to crediting on the episodes, Tony Gilroy is not credited as a writer.
He is for the first 3 of season 2. The
Yeah,
sole one, along with George Lucas. He's credited as a writer for season 2, episodes 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And then Beau.
And then
4, 5. It looks like they do them by arc. Then Dan gets 7, 8, 9. And then
so each of them kind of wrote out one arc of the
one
12
quarter.
episode series. One other thing I'll mention is that Helen Sheng was listed as a co-producer on season 2 of The Rings of Power. Even though she only got 1 episode's writing credit, I believe that was episode 3. She was considered a co-producer for the whole season. And she was on a podcast recently. I can't remember the name, but she talked about her experience of writing for Amazon. And she said it was, it's kind of related to how the industry has changed in that, instead of having a recurring yearly gig, you're going from one major project to another, and that has its own pros and cons. And so these co-producing, consulting, producing titles were written to sort of emphasize the fact that they did work on this project, even if they don't have the writer credit because they weren't around for the entire production schedule. They were available to work on editing and writing and creating. And one thing she mentioned about her experience was that, they had brought her in because she had written for Hannibal and she had a horror background. Now she's credited in episode 3, but a lot of that stuff we kind of saw in episode 2 and 5 between Anatar and Celebrimbor. So it makes me think that she did work on the Anatar and Celebrimbor storyline, even if she is just credited for episode 3. Get what I'm saying? Like, it's a collaborative approach. Like
Yeah,
same thing with
that's what.
Jen Hutch. Like they brought her in to write these Haladriel scenes, right?
Yeah, that's what Jessica was talking about earlier, which was that everybody's there's no one person was not responsible for every one thing. Like it is really written as a group. Um and yeah, it's just I would have, I don't know, out from an outside perspective, I just would have preferred, hey, McPain, you're the showrunners. You already get the glory and the contract and the biggest salary and the top credit. You're in charge. Like, why don't you uplift all the other writers that are supporting you and give them the credits on the writing credits on the show.
One thing I would like for this show to do is, emphasize the behind the scenes production stuff, kind of
Absolutely,
like the
absolutely.
original trilogy did, because that is really what us as fans also end up appreciating, to be able to see the amount of work and thought that goes into this show, because there's obviously a lot. It's a $1 billion production. It's every episode is like 40-50 million, so there's a lot of time, money, and effort going into this, and we just want to see more of the process that leads to the final product.
Release the season 1 behind the scenes documentary.
There you go.
I mean,
Amazon, if you're
David,
listening.
you were there back in the days. You probably remember, you know, fans had various opinions of the movies as they came out, but we saw those opinions change when the documentaries were released, and suddenly people went from Two Towers is the worst movie I've ever seen. This is a failed adaptation. It failed Faramir. It failed Aragorn. It failed Arwen at Helm's Deep. Like it failed. So, and then the
Treebeard,
documentaries
yeah.
came out, and we saw the creative process, and suddenly everybody went, "Oh, I understand it now. It's pretty good."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
I think if
think
you see the creator's passion, then you
yeah.
can go like the effort, the care, not seeing, as I say, like polished, made up actors sitting in directors' chairs, off camera interview, 5 minutes. That's your behind the scenes of them answering questions. Like, that's not that. You want to be like, here's a guy or a girl with a handheld on set, seeing the actors joking with the writers and the showrunners, and here's some prop maker who's worn off their fingerprints from putting together chainmail and going, I love my job, I've been doing this for 3 weeks, like you want to see those people, like the craft people behind the production. And then you go like, no, it's not cheap. Like it's not made by people who hate Tolkien. Like it's
I want Rings of
they're
Power
doing
to
their
have its
best.
own, this is the moment Viggo Mortensen stubbed his toe moment.
Yes.
That's what I want. I want to be able to watch the
Yes.
show with other people and have that moment.
Yeah.
Like at Fellowship of Fans, we've been trying to go through some of the productions, because there is stuff out there. Ramsey Avery has put out like a production design book. There's a lot of concept artists who have shared their work. It's just not all collated. But
Shout out to Northie and Dr. Yarrow, who are the goats of sharing
Oh
the
my God, they're
concept
the
art and behind the
librarians
scenes.
of
Yeah,
this. Like,
Xanos is also great. They always bring the heat. So
I agree. I agree. We got other news this week, maybe even today. Let me bring it up on screen here. Not only do we know the writers of each episode, it seems that according to Rings of Power era, Drew and Khalil are saying that this is the breakdown of directors for season 3 of Rings of Power. Charlotte Branstrom, of course, has worked on both season 1 and season 2. She is kind of would you guys call her the lead director of the whole show?
she's been on there the longest, right? It was Sana Hamri new for season 2.
Yeah, she was new for
Yeah.
season 2, but Charlotte's been there since season
Yeah,
1.
she's been in there since season 1. So yeah, I mean,
And then Stefan Schwartz is new for this season, and Charlotte Branstrom bringing it home, which can mean only one thing. Episode 8, we're going to see the return of Haladriel. Your comments, guys.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something happen between them and interaction in some way in season 8, just based on set pictures that we've seen previous. It seems like there's a scene that happens maybe in the latter episodes that includes Galadriel, Farazan, maybe Sauron, although I cannot see him in this picture. I still cannot see where he is. And then maybe also Jamie Campbell Bower's character, all appearing in a set picture together. So yeah, I mean, I would expect to see something happening that includes all those characters.
I will say that we know, based on Amazon's own official press reporting, that season 3, Sauron is trying to make the One Ring. So, if we do get that moment where Sauron makes the One Ring and puts it on in season 3, then we should get a moment where after Sauron puts the ring on, he can see the minds of everyone else who's wearing the rings, including the 3 rings, including whoever's wearing Nenya, aka Galadriel,
And they
we
can also see his.
and they can also see his, and we can get another Mind Palace, Raylo style, on the raft conversation.
I think it would be good because it shows the power of the One Ring, right? Because that raft scene was, whatever your take about the Galadriel side of it, that scene was just really good. Like,
Absolutely, right?
that scene was just like, well, it was like the Durin scene, season 2, episode 8 with the Balrog. It was like the sort of crux of like their whole sort of interaction. And so if it's suddenly like Sauron, he's got his ring, pops it on, and suddenly there's Gil-galad, there's who's got the ring at the moment? Círdan, here's Galadriel, here's the Nine. I would maybe not have the dwarves be involved because of how the dwarves work, but like suddenly it's not just Sauron and Galadriel, they're right there, Mind Palace. It's like across Middle Earth. I've now sucked all your brains in, and like we're now kind of connected.
That would be cool.
That's a huge, like you could write that amazingly.
The question is, does that happen in episode 8 or a little bit earlier?
It'd have to be earlier.
Yeah.
The thing that's weird, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Is that, so Justin, when post Lord of the Rings, writing Lord of the Rings, Tolkien was trying to insert Galadriel back into the Silmarillion. He was going back and like, okay, she was important, and so you can see her, she gets in, and then he gets to a point, and then it's a kind of, then she kind of leaves, and it's like, well, it's because he ran out of steam, or he moved to a different thing, and so Galadriel never gets written into the story in a way that crosses over the Numenor material. And like this season's going to be a Numenor season, and Sauron's going to have a little trip at the end of the season, we expect, to the island. And there's zero material about what Galadriel was doing in that whole thing. Like Farazan turns up, bow before me. The scene where Adar makes Sauron put his face on the ground, right, and swear fealty. I mean, I expect we're going to see something a bit like that from Farazan, where he's like, "You're not the king of men. I'm the king of men. Get on your knees." But we don't know what Galadriel's doing at that time because Tolkien never wrote it.
She could be doing anything.
We know when could be doing anything. She could not be there. She could be there.
So what do you guys think? Because I see these comments a lot. How a lot of fans on Twitter, especially Galadriel fans, are like, season 1 was all about Galadriel. She takes up so much screen time, and Galadriel and Halbrand go on an adventure together. And then in season 2, Galadriel's kind of has less screen time, and Galadriel and Sauron don't ever interact until the last 10 minutes of the whole season. So because there isn't much written, as you were just saying, do you think that her screen time will be diminished further in season 3? And is that a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't, look, this is the Rings of Power, the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power. This is a show about Sauron and the Rings of Power. And she is one of the bearers of a ring of power. So she is one of the very main characters of this show. I think that
He's the only one who keeps it the whole time.
yeah, I
Mm.
mean, I think that she will continue to be one of the main characters of the show. I'm so glad that this show dove into her fascinating history and character, and we got to see what she was like earlier. She has one of the greatest trajectories of any Tolkien character, and I think it's fantastic that we got to see some of that and see some of her nuance and how unique she was in Tolkien's mind. And I think that we have other characters who are extremely important to the second age as well. Elrond being one of them. Numenor, Pharazôn, Isildur, Elendil, and we've got other ring bearers as well. So I don't think that her screen time is going to get diminished more. But I think that there are other characters who are just as integral to the story being told of the second age that they will continue to draw to the forefront. So yes, she was our main point of view character for season 1. I think that season 2 we had different main point of view character. I would expect a different one for season 3 as well. I have my thoughts about who that might be, but yeah, I don't think that she's gonna get, shoved off to the side and no longer be a part of the story. It sounds like from leaks that we've heard that she will continue to be important, as she should be.
I think it's important to remember that they have kind of set her and Sauron up as like the thematic embodiments of good versus evil, light versus dark. So there will be interactions between them until the end of the series, at least, right?
You would
But
hope so, but they didn't have any interactions in season 2 until like this, until the very end in this throwaway knife fight. Where
don't say it was
That was a
throwaway. It
great
was
fight.
that was the battle of season 2, right? That was the fight of season 2.
You hear
right?
me, Amazon? You hear us, Amazon? That was the battle of season 2. So more of that.
What I would say is that, as Jessica was saying, there's other characters who play a significant major role in the second age. And for us to really be able to care about them and to enjoy their journey, someone like Gil-galad has to have a little bit more screen time so we can see a little bit more depth to his character. Someone like Elendil, we need to be able to follow his journey a little bit more. Isildur is so important to the second age and third age, right? We need to have a little bit more time with him so that we can understand the gravity of the decision that he makes when he makes it. And I think if you forget that part of the equation of this show, you're missing out on, what made Tolkien so special to so many people, which is that there were these so many characters that are larger than life, that are mythical, that embody certain traits and attributes that we look throughout mythology and folklore for. And we want to see these characters play out those storylines from beginning to end.
And if you, I think you might have been there, Justin, in Oxford when the showrunners were asked, what do you think the major theme of the second age is? And the reports are, they said something like death and the desire for deathlessness, which is exactly what Tolkien said, like the point of Lord of the Rings
Yeah, I
was.
wish that was in the show. They can tell us that that's what they think, but it's not in the show.
Yeah, but I mean, I think
Debatable.
when it comes, we're going to see some major characters die at varying points between now and the end of the show. Like we want to care about
But
them.
yeah, we've
We
already
need to
we've
give them
seen
time.
major characters die, like
No,
you know.
but I mean, well,
Like I
Like-
had a complaint about Celebrimbor in season 1 barely being there, but at least for me, I think season 2, the amount of time that was given to tell his story was satisfying enough for
Mhm.
me to feel like they did justice to his character.
mm,
Could I have used a little bit more? Yeah, but I think I'm pretty happy with what we got in season 2 for
Mm.
Celebrimbor and what Charlie Edwards got to do with the character.
Yeah, will he be back for season 3? We don't know.
he
Oh,
had a
gosh.
cast of his head done that he shared on socials and was deleted.
He did,
What
yeah.
was that for?
Exactly.
Who
And
knows?
someone had
Who
found
knows?
a screenshot or something of apparently his agent had put up, or someone had put up,
That was my
with-
first leak.
of
The
him
drop.
being named in season 3. So I don't know. Maybe it could be a flashback. Maybe it could be a
Y'all think
Force
I'm
ghost.
crazy about Nazgul Brimby, but
No,
Well, I
don't
do
know if
still
it'll
think you're
be-
crazy. That
Shadow
is
of
not
Mordor,
how I
right?
foresee him.
No.
Law accuracy central.
I think it could be a flashback to like a
Amazon,
different scene.
have the courage. I want to see Nazgul Brimby. I want to see like a flesh dripping ghostly figure helping Sauron craft the One Ring.
Let's not do
Ghost
Shadow
Brimby.
of Mordor in
Wait,
the Rings of
Justin.
Power.
I drew a picture of Sauron crafting the One Ring, and you should share it. But continue on conversation. I'll send it to you in the Discord. It's a
yeah.
masterwork.
I want to see it. I want to see it.
Well,
What do you
Sauron's
guys?
a necromancer, so
Yeah,
we
right.
don't know.
We need to see more.
Done some funky stuff.
I think Cliff and I argued a little bit about the Barrow Wights and whether they were connected at all to Sauron's necromancy. I don't necessarily care if it's not accurate in the lore. I think the show, because it's television and TV viewers just need simplicity, I would love to see a connection between the necromancy of the Barrow Wights and Sauron's necromancy. He's got to make the Nazgul at some point.
I mean, he did say something like, there are ways of keeping you alive
Mhm.
to Celebrimbor. That too is my craft.
Melon.
So, we might see something, but I wouldn't hold my breath, and I wouldn't say it's going to be a major significant part.
Yeah, and when it comes to the Barrow Wights, I think they needed a shorthand for Sauron's influence is spreading across Middle Earth and awakening these different creatures. And Tolkien specifically says that the dwarves even believed, or that the works of Sauron in the Second Age actually caused the Balrog in Khazad-dûm to awaken during the Second Age. So I think that this was just their way of showing shorthand that Sauron's influence is spreading and all of these evil creatures are being, woken up because of it. And that it's a result of his meddling in Middle
Yeah.
Earth and his shenanigans.
Daniel in the chat room asking, could we still see Celebrimbor in season 3? I think
Why
so.
else would they make a cast of his head? Which I didn't know this.
Yeah, I think there is a balance between being vulgar and grotesque, like Game of Thrones would probably do. Probably they would probably skin a man alive and show his skin flapping in the wind like a flag. But I don't think Rings of Power is going to get that gross. But I do think that they're going to show that in season 3. But I also think some necromancy might be involved in Celebrimbor. Celebrimbor's knowledge will be required to craft the One Ring.
So are you saying you have a theory that Sauron is gonna dig Celebrimbor's body out of the ruins of Eregion and then try to use some form of necromancy to bring him back to life just so he can ask him how to make the One Ring?
Yeah, and Celebrimbor, the first Nazgul.
I don't know about Nazgul.
Yeah, and then on the marketing campaign, McPain are going to go on TV and say we were inspired by Frankenstein because everybody loved that movie that Kate Hawley worked on, and she won an Oscar for, and fans are going to be like, can you reference anything except Tolkien again, please? So I don't know. Let's take a look at this drawing, this masterpiece.
I
That
need to
is
update it with the hair color information that was done.
Sauron and the volcano and Ghost Brimby.
Not I. Whatever that's there for.
Yeah,
That it's able to be understood. And then he's holding the little ring. And Feanor's hammer, which he now has in his possession at the end of season 2, and he's going to do something with it. That's a Chekhov's hammer.
He does have it. Chekhov's gun. Yeah. All right. Well, we're coming up on 2 hours. This is amazing. Check this out, guys. Jeff Bezos was the official sponsor of the Met Gala. You can Google all the reports you want on the Met Gala and Jeff Bezos's sponsorship, but I wanted to highlight this. Beyonce bring in some Queen Mariel headwear. Look at this. Would you believe it? The headpiece is given Queen Mariel. Let's take a look at that photo. And then Queen Mariel.
Yeah, I kind of see it.
You see the vision?
I do.
Let me see if I can zoom in on this. Oh, Twitter's so broken. Elon sucks. Yeah. So, I like
Queen
it.
Muriel does have some of the best outfits in the show, and I'm looking
Mhm.
forward to seeing what she has in season 3.
Yeah, I do like it. I can see the influence. And of course, I think both Beyonce and Kate Hawley were inspired by the same historical references in the past. So, man, yeah, you were talking about her outfits. I mean, just look at these, man.
Yeah.
Like the colors, the textures.
You have the white one from her coronation.
No, that's she's in the water.
Really good.
No, I don't have it immediately available. All right, folks. Well, next week should be a big week. Again, Amazon upfronts are Monday, May 11th at 6:30 p.m. What is an upfront? Let me explain. Amazon Prime is a television network, just like NBC, just like ABC and CBS. And in May, for the last many, many years, each television network goes to New York City and gives a big presentation on all their upcoming TV shows and movies to advertisers. So the people in the audience are like Coca-Cola, Ford Motor Company, Kleenex Tissues, Burger King, Ozempic. All the ads that you see on TV, the companies that buy that ad space are going to be at this upfront on Monday to hear about Amazon's huge success, how big their audience is, how many people watch their shows, how many subscribers they have, and all of the new content and new shows that they have coming up in order to entice advertisers to buy commercial time during their shows. So this presentation is expected to be live streamed, possibly on YouTube, maybe just on Amazon Prime. So we're expecting to be able to watch it, and we are expecting that they will announce the release date for season 3 of Rings of Power and potentially have a trailer that we can finally watch. That is Monday.
They did that
And
for season 2, so it would make sense to do it for season 3.
yeah, they did that for season 2. And I mean, this is a full
Approximately 6
dog.
months out, right?
Yeah, 6 months out, 9 months out, 12 months out. We don't know. We don't know. So that's Monday. We expect a bunch of stuff, and I don't anticipate that Torn will go live on Monday night. I think Torn Tuesday would be a good place for everybody to gather their thoughts, watch the trailers a few times, and then we'll just be live at our normal time next Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific, to review the trailer and maybe have another call-in show. Maybe you guys would like to jump back on in and share your thoughts on it. I'm sure Fellowship of Fans and Nerd of the Rings, Tea with Tolkien, everyone's going to have their trailer breakdowns. I think it's going to be a long night for a lot of influencers.
What if we all do one together?
That's what Torn Tuesday is going to be. It's going to be the one where everybody unites. And
That would be fun.
and everyone agrees on everything, right?
Yes. Everyone agrees with me.
More Arendelle in the show.
Yes.
There you go.
Always. Oh, we didn't get to talk about Elros. Next time.
Next time. Well, since Cliff isn't here, any final questions or thoughts? This is your last chance to ask me anything.
No. Thanks for having us. This was
Yeah.
so fun.
This was awesome. Thank you, Justin, for having us. I really
We
appreciate
should do
it.
it more.
We should do it more. I like these call-in shows. I want to thank all the folks that called and texted on the hotline. I do like hearing everybody's voice. I thank you, Emily, for staying. You're still in the chat. It's like 4 a.m., Emily. Go to bed. You can watch this tomorrow on YouTube. You know, I don't delete the episodes. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in and joining us for this live call-in show all about Rings of Power. And there's a lot to look forward to. And I really hope next week we actually have real stuff to talk about. Like, enough with
Hey,
the
this
rumors.
was all real to me. It'll
Friends
be
who made it
real
all
in
the way.
like 6 months.
It'll be real in 6 months. All right, folks. That is Torn Tuesday. You can find me and basically everybody here on Discord. Just search for the One Ring on Discord, and Fellowship of Fans also has a Discord, and Tea with Tolkien also has a Discord. Everybody's active. Everybody is pretty much on
Friends.
everybody else's Discord. Last Win says, what is your favorite page of the Two Towers book? I'm supposed to read?
Justin can't read. Don't make fun of him.
Whichever chapter has the title Flotsam and Jetsam, because I just love that as a title.
Actually, I will say this.
Turn of the King.
On my flight in Italy, you saw the post on Instagram. I finished T's book. It's an amazing book. It's very aspirational, inspirational. At the top there, it says a spiritual journey for the Hobbit at heart. I was in Italy for a pilgrimage. I did a big pilgrimage to a big church, and this was the perfect book to read in and around a kind of religious thing. But she does a great job of organizing different characters of Lord of the Rings into themes, and each chapter is a different theme that can apply to your life, and then she brings about the Tolkien aspect, and then she brings about the biblical aspect of some of the connections that J.R.R. Tolkien made, and she quotes Tolkien and some of his letters. So this is a great book. Find it at your local bookstore or order it online if you have to. Into the Heart of Middle Earth. And maybe she'll come to Comic-Con and maybe she'll sign your copy at our booth at Comic-Con. But we got a lot of stuff to work out for Comic-Con. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Webb. Thank you, David. Thank you, everybody, for calling in. And yeah, there it is. And making Torn Tuesday so much fun. Did she sign yours?
Yes, she did, and I can't find where she signed. Oh yeah,
She
signed by T Original.
She didn't sign mine.
Well, I brought it to our book signing and got her to sign it in
Oh,
person.
she
They
only
gotta do
signs at
that.
book signings.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. Seconded, great book, loved it. Have an interview with T where I talked about it. She's got a book club going on right now on her Discord about it, and it's excellent conversations. So, gonna
Yes.
echo what she said.
Check out their interview, check out her book club, and you know, Cliff always says the thing, but does someone else want to say the thing that he ends the show with? Jess, do you know it? David, do you know it?
Namadie?
Just buenas noches.
Does he say Namarie?
No, he's close. David's close.
I'm gonna say
Buenas
happy
noches.
Cinco de Mayo to
Good
everyone.
night and
Good night.
good luck.
Good night and good luck, or better yet, buenos noches y
I guess I don't know.
buenas,
Anyone in the chat?
buena
I don't know.
suerte.
I don't know Spanish.
I don't know either. I don't know either. But it is happy Cinco de Mayo. May the 5th be with you. And we'll see you next week on Torn
May
Tuesday.
the
Thanks,
11th
everybody.
be the day we get something.
Yeah, we'll see you Monday.